hydrogen out of the water input that you're putting in, that out of the energy you get out of the hydrogen reaction afterwards from the fuel. So it's taking...
Yeah, so real quick on that front, I want to say too that first of all, I'm not going to go to Dr. Greer with this. I do think that Dr. Greer's had some good whistleblowers that have talked about technology, but I'm not bringing this to him. I'm not going to have any connection to him on this. A lot of people have actually asked me that, weirdly. And this doesn't come from him either. And then on the cold fusion side, though, that Dr. Greer did an interview with Paul Size, I think is how you say his last name. And he mentioned the idea that he thought that these cold fusion reactions and devices were actually a form of 0-point energy or free energy, the same thing as the ether. And I tend to agree. I think that anything that's producing over unity, whether it be cold fusion or what have you, I think that they're all coming from the same idea of the ether, is that you are extracting energy from the environment. I would even go so far as to argue that even a battery is extracting energy from the ether. And that it's this. The issue is that the system is a closed system as opposed to being an open system. And the reason I say this, even though it's a bold statement to make, is if you watch the Veritasium video about how power flows, people don't realize that power doesn't flow through wires, is that power flows through fields that can go directly from the source to the light bulb or what have you. And this was like one of the most controversial things I posted last week. I had tons of electrical engineers and electricians that were saying, no, it has to flow through wires. And I just keep telling them, look at the configuration in the Veritasium video. Look at the fact that the light turns on at 1 over the speed of light. And that proves that the power is not flowing through the wires. It doesn't matter what you were taught. Like, that's just, there's undeniable proof. And once you realize that the power flows through fields, then you go, well, where's that field flowing through? What's the medium for that field? That can work in space. That can work in the air. How is that possible? And then you realize, well, we must need a medium for that, the ether again. And that's, I think, the basis for all of this, ether-based technology. Who just joined us here?
Well, absolutely. We got Mike with Faraday Research, and he is a fellow Canadian of mine.
Man, 2 Canadians and 1 American. I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle this.
And not just that, Mike himself has achieved several times over efficiency / over unity on several of his builds, including, I guess, the centerpiece of it. Mike, is it correct that it is a DC motor with a flywheel, essentially, that is...
Well, yeah, what my device does is, basically it's a current-free potential. It has to do with the switching method of turning the power on and off. The way I do it in my device, because it uses basically a disruptive discharge as a release. Every time you release and there is an open circuit, that means the ion travel between the plates of the battery. They never actually exit the battery. So what you're doing, you're stealing the potential voltage off the battery. You're not actually extracting the current or the ionic movement within the battery plates. So it never actually leaves the battery. So basically, you're like skimming the battery. So because of this effect, I can run my motor for several hours and the batteries don't wear out, or several days or several weeks. And the batteries, like one set of batteries I've been working with for 6 months, they still haven't completely died. They're still running. So switching technology is very important. And I've basically come up with a system that can really take the average battery and make it put out 50 times, 100 or 200 times more power, but it's over time. Not at the event of creating power. The over unity comes with the time. So that's what a lot of engineers don't take into account when they design a system.
Right, and so that's like a 50x, 50 times over. So that's 500 or 5,000%.
Yeah, the efficiency is, it's off the charts. So the way we've designed our electrical systems, our grid system, everything's been done wrong. Where Tesla, back in the day, he worked with very high voltages, very high frequencies. A perfect example would be like the streetlights outside. How many kilowatt hours those streetlights put out. If you were to change the frequency, say from the standard North American 60 hertz, say you made those lights run at 200 hertz. Well, guess what? You just made the efficiency of that light way higher than it would be at 60 hertz. And the amount of savings and, the amount of fossil fuels needed to keep those lights running is greatly reduced. So that's just one of many examples of how what we've built today in our world, we're running at the wrong voltages, we're running at the wrong frequencies. We run at a higher voltage, higher frequency, just like going back to Joseph Newman and his motor. His motor was running on dead batteries. And I've actually done it with my device, run my device for several days, several months on dead batteries. So this kind of throws all the regular electrical engineering science out the window. How is this possible? Right?
Yeah, I think the question there too on the battery stuff is one of efficiency is very important because there may be multiple angles of attack on the problem. One is, okay, can we extract energy directly from the environment or the ether or the quantum fluctuations? The other is like, can we make it more, magnitudes more efficient in the extraction efforts as well, which I think that all of these, this is what I want to inspire people out there. And real quick, I just want to say that I made this post yesterday about making America great again, and I truly believe. I mean, both you guys are Canadians, but you know what? You're America's hat. We'll give you guys honorary
again because
we'll make North America great again.
Too,
yes.
Right? So make America great again.
We need more engineers. Yeah, we need more engineers though in the West. Like we need all of our engineers come from like India and China and stuff now. Because Americans don't know how important engineering is, and they don't know. I think that people would be more inspired if they listen to people like you, Mike, and people that are interested in trying to not necessarily cheat the laws of physics, but look at them through a new lens and not just assume that whatever we were taught is the limitations of this box that we're living in.
Exactly. I want to show you just briefly here the battery cell technology that I'm currently working on. It's carbon magnesium
Mike,
graphite.
Can you turn your phone 90 degrees so we get full screen?
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Carbon magnesium graphite battery cell. So I've been testing these cells here, and I'm running a little light here. And these battery cells have been running for 4 months, nonstop. So I've almost perfected it's a solid state battery, by the way. So I do believe these batteries are exhibiting some kind of quantum tunneling, because technically these batteries shouldn't work at all, but they are. So it's getting its power. This is a 12-volt chaser light. It's running it.
So you're extracting blood from a stone here. Basically, there's nothing that should be coming out. Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So then it could be this cold electricity that we don't really monitor or acknowledge then that's coming in. Is that correct? What's your thought on that, Mike?
Well, the quantum tunneling exhibits where there's ion flow, where technically there shouldn't be any interaction of going from the anode to the cathode, but the ions are actually making it through this barrier and actually traveling with no means of, an electrolyte or, something to push it through, right? But they are making it through. And, the fact that these tiny little cells have been running for 4 months or 3.5 months now, is just quite amazing, to me, that I could actually get the battery to perform like this. So as far as over unity or free energy, I really believe it's in the solid state battery technology or power cell. So I've got big plans, partnered up with somebody, and we're going to make large scale. They're going to be like tiles, like 12 by 12. And I have some other precious metal materials that I'm going to experiment with to see if I could get the potentials higher. So I got a bunch of material on order now, plus the plates, carbon graphite plates, magnesium, a whole whack of materials.
Magnesium's a good one. So for all of those that have been asking and mentioning the Walter Russell periodic tables that Terrence Howard brought up in the Joe Rogan interview, they're actually a key tool in applying to what Mike's working on here, with where the metals are on the octave on that repeating loop going over, because you want to get two metals as far apart on opposite sides that you create the largest electrical differential as possible. So if you have say what I guess aluminum and copper, or I guess so copper and silver on the same side, but copper is closer to the center where silver is closer to the outside of the shell, the further side, so that when you use copper versus silver against aluminum, you'll get more of a charge differential from the silver than you will from the copper, because there's more ion or electrical.
It's a what's the word I'm looking for? The polar opposite of itself.
Inverted
opposite, differential in materials. Like there's one guy out there that's been doing this stuff. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2021. He had a great cell technology. He had cells running for over 4 years nonstop. He was using a carbon graphite and then a carbon silicate combination. And he had some even how he used the battery was very similar to the way I'm using the batteries, say in my pulse generator. I call it's a reactance generator, basically. And the switching method, he does that too with the cells. It would be like 2 seconds on a load and then 7 seconds off. 2 seconds on a load, 7 seconds off. And if you keep that cycling going like that, there's no reason why those cells cannot put out power for 4, 6, 10, 20 years, provided that you use those cells in a proper manner. Instead of pulling just a load off it, you'll kill a battery, any battery. You dead short a battery, you kill it. Same
instantly,
thing,
right? And so that's what's so funny. A lot for anyone out there that's ever purchased a new electronic, and they used to and sometimes still say, oh, you got to run it all the way down and dead and kill the battery the first time for it to work really good.
Well,
it's like they're literally telling you to kill your battery, which will do permanent harm and might kill it.
That depends on what type of power. If you're putting negative energy into a regular battery, you have to discharge it completely. This is what John Bedini was talking about for years. He says you cannot put a negative energy charge into a positively charged battery. So you have to discharge it, and then after you discharge it, you charge it with the negative energy. So now you've basically reformatted the battery to accept a negative charge. Now, from there on, then you have to continue to charge it with a negative charge. If you try to charge it with a positive charge, it's going to kill the battery off. So it can't be both. It has to be one or the other. So he said he would use a positively charged battery to run the Bedini motor and charge a battery with negative charge. And he would never swap the batteries, because the second you swap the batteries, that positive charged battery that you were using is now going to get destroyed by the negative energy. So it's counterintuitive to do it. So you would have a stack of batteries that are negatively charged, and have another stack of batteries that are positively charged. So if the batteries that are running the motor start running low, you take the negative charged batteries, run that through an inverter, and use a regular battery charger to charge those primary batteries. So that way you're not destroying the battery. So a lot of people get that wrong when they're doing the Bedini system. But
so let me ask you a question, Mike, on this. So because I think a lot of people's questions and a lot of people's criticisms are on the approach of, telling the world. Are you willing to give away your work for free? Or is this a situation where you would want to be able to profit off of it?
Well, I've got over 460 videos on my YouTube channel. I pretty much have disclosed everything that I've done, with the pulse charging and the reactance generators, everything that, like I said, I've been doing this for a few years now. I've got, a pretty good following, 3,000 subscribers. I got text messages, emails all the time. They ask me questions. I give them my personal opinion. If they like what I say, great. If they think I'm full of crap, okay, whatever, move on. You know what I mean? I'm just one man, and I don't have all the answers. I'm not, the end all say all kind of thing. I always encourage every person out there that makes criticism to say, have you actually done any experiments? Have you been on the bench? Have you actually tried any of this stuff? And most of them won't reply, because all they're out there is, they're just trying to needle at you. But you know what? I put what I can out. If there's just one little thing that resonates with you and actually helps your project to make it better, hey, all the power to you. You got something out of it.
Yeah, that's the part where, because I think a lot of people don't realize, I think that giving the information about how the concepts work, that to me seems like, sure, no brainer. You're educating people. But if you come down to actually a specific configuration that you can patent or that you're going to market, that's now, I think, in my mind, you've broached the line of intellectual property. I think that no one's under any obligation to work for free. That's my opinion. I mean, I don't think a lot of people out there wouldn't say that they work for free, and everything out there is work. There's no such thing as free anything for the most part. Everything costs something out there. And this is just how I want to address people is that, go ahead.
Yeah, the one big problem with the U.S. Patent Office, they have a Section 113, I think it is. It's a provisionary thing where any patent that goes through the office, it gets a classification. So say if it's a over unity device or a free energy device, it gets screened by the U.S. or the military industrial complex. If they deem it as a national security risk to the status quo, it will be basically blackballed, and you'll never see the light of day again. And it's happened actually to a couple of friends of mine. Norman Mutan, he had the MRI device that basically got, okie dokie from several universities, Georgia Tech, MIT, a few other, but all those institutions, they wouldn't sign off on it because they're more worried about the reputation, right? Some tests were showing COP of 40. Some were showing COP of 18. But the second he filed for the U.S. patent, they deemed it a national security risk, and it is shoved in a drawer somewhere at the U.S. Patent Office for the last 30 years. And it'll never see the light of day. So if you have a system that's already rigged against you, the last thing you want to do is go get a patent, because it's going to get blackballed. So why even bother? Why would you, waste your money and your time and your resources like poor Joseph Newman that actually took it to the federal court and still lost, even though that he had the best engineers basically in the United States say, yeah, this machine's for real. It is over unity. It's putting out more power than is going into this machine. And they proved it time and time again. Still, they would never issue him a patent. So he's kind of the poster child of this. Don't get a patent.
And this is the difficult part, though, because if you don't get a patent and then you sell it to somebody, now what prevents that person from just telling everybody how it works? So now you're screwed, right? And this is where I want people to understand the complexity related to it, is that if you get a patent, you might get silenced. And if you don't get a patent, how do you protect your intellectual property? And this is probably going to be some of the challenges faced with trying to commercialize and market this. Well, and I have it on one more thing real quick, is that I have it on pretty good authority that the government already has these devices. The military already uses these devices. Because of what you just said.
Most definitely. Actually, I just saw a really good, it was Energy from the Vacuum series. They were interviewing a guy, William Doyle. And he was talking about his father was affiliation with a company back in the 1950s in Toronto, a company called DesignX. And they were working on Project Silverbug, the Avro Arrow. They were working on missile projects. They were working nuclear energy, and also the three engineers from Britain that were involved at Space DesignX. They were working on this thing called the cold heat engine.
Yeah.
So they constructed the engine. It was basically like kind of like a modified refrigerator. And basically they got this thing to run. And when it started running, there was no on-off switch. As soon as you turned it on, that was it. It was on forever.
Yeah.
So by 1954, and Shell gas was all over that place, all through the Avro Arrow, Project Silverbug, the Avro car. They were living there. They were watching everything. And when they developed this cold heat engine, it basically, 1954, coal, fossil fuel of all kinds was basically obsolete. And it was fact.
Yeah, it's probably been for a long time, right?
Right.
Like a really long
So
time.
since the mid 50s, fossil fuels basically been obsolete.
And I just want to address, because I think I'm going to get this all the time, that people demand that people give their intellectual property away for free. I'm just going to be honest with you, that's not going to happen for me in this case. If you want to criticize me for that, then you can go nuts with it. If people want to give their work away for free, if people want to work for free, they can totally do that. What I'm going to do is I'm just simply giving away the concepts and the science and how it works. Whether you believe it or don't believe it, you can take it or leave it. But
Right.
to demand somebody give their intellectual property away for free,
No.
to me, is just completely anti-free market.
Yeah.
And that's like saying that, like, you should, like, that's like me asking you should work for me for free as my slave. Nobody would agree to that. And everybody would think that that's wrong. So when you say you should give it away for free, I want you to think, would you give your time away for free? Would you give away something that can make you a bunch of money for free? I think that most people would say that they would, but when it comes right down to it, they would not.
Yeah. And that's kind of the rut we've been in since, God knows when, because we, all of us that are inventors that work with this stuff, we know the system's rigged. We know it's rigged.
100%.
And it's very discouraging. So, in desperations, a lot of people are out there and say, okay, if I can't do anything with this and I'm trying to make a better world, the last thing I could do is give out bits and bytes of the piece of the puzzle. And if you have any, intellect or engineering skill, you should be able to recreate this. Like even John Bedini said, I'm not going to give everything to you. I'm going to give you the general operation, how it works. But in the end, you got to figure it out on your own.
Yep.
There's no glory for the lazy.
Exactly. A lot of people too, it's just that, it requires highly specialized skill in order to build some of this stuff. And people just think, oh, I just should have it for free. I deserve that your stuff for free. If you want to, you've been taught the science and how it works. Go figure it out. Go make your own. And then people go, oh, well, I can't want to do that. It's too hard. Well, exactly. That's why things cost money. That's how markets work, no matter what type of economy. So
exactly. Like when I got into this, I didn't know any electrical. I never went to school for it. I'm a machinist by trade. So I got into this stuff, back in early 2000s. And, I started little by little. I started watching videos and reading schematics and basically self-taught. And, to me, seeing is believing. So if I build a device and it's getting the effects that people claim that's getting the effects, then you know what? I believe it because I see it in front of me. It's real. So that's I go in with a non-bias. If you go in with a non-bias approach and say, okay, I know general physics, how things are supposed to work, but what happens if you start going outside that box?
Yeah.
What kind of questions are you going to ask? Why is this happening? That's when the real research starts. Because you can't go to a textbook and get an answer.
Scientific breakthrough is by going outside the box. You're not going to get a breakthrough without breaking through the realm of what the norm used to be. And then by definition, you will get resistance by the establishment that is that system for breaking out and presenting something new. 100%. And it's the only way.
And here's the part too. I want to give another example. Remember LK99 from last summer? That was theoretically open source. Like they said, here's how you can produce LK9. What happened? A bunch of people went out and failed to reproduce it, and then they all determined that it was fake, and it got brushed under the rug and suppressed.
All the ones that did, but they got suppressed or claimed that they were bunk.
And this is the part where people literally do not understand the concept of open source and how easy. Just because something's open source does not mean it can be discredited. Does not mean that it's going to be proven. So this is the number one thing that people misunderstand about how the world works, is they just think, oh, well, if it's open source, it's going to be impossible. If you put it on the blockchain, then it'll automatically get out there. No, it won't. That's literally how they've been doing it. People have been doing it. The thunderstorm generator has been open source for years, and it's gotten essentially no attention. You guys have to realize the world is not as simple as that people have in their idealistic mindsets. You have the only way to get it out there is to actually have products in people's hands that they're literally using and then advocating for. Simple as that.
Yeah, it's a very complex thing, and it's nothing new. You know, there's been a few inventors in the past that were killed ultimately for their inventions. Floyd Sweet and what's his name? The water cell engine. Stanley Myers.
Stanley Myers, there's several others as well. This is the part where people don't realize, like, there's a history of people that have created over unity type devices or alternate fuel source devices, and it generally doesn't end well for them. Like when you start messing with people's money, that's when they start getting at you too, right? So if you start trying to put it out there for free, that's probably the most dangerous thing in my mind that you can do. I think that the best way is a selective, slow approach where you start getting it out to the people and you start, acclimating people to the idea of it. And then it starts to become more and more accepted. And then it gets to the point where they can't hide it anymore, where people just generally know that it's out there.
It's like, you can only keep a secret so long, right?
Exactly.
It's going to get out.
But they've been keeping it secret for a long ass time. Like, I think this stuff is going back like 50 years or more. It's pretty scary.
Longer than that. It goes back to Tesla. The Engineers League of the Electrical Engineers League of Britain or whatever, they had a meeting back in around 1919, just before Steinmetz died. And with the work that Tesla was doing and J.J. Thomson and all these great engineers, they pretty much came to the consensus that within a couple of years with Tesla's work and all that they would actually be able to build a motor generator that didn't need a power source. So, and it's in writing, and it was from Oxford University, Dr. William Henry. He was the head of that conference that they had. And, they had a meeting that night, they had dinner together, and they discussed what is possible, what we could actually make. And that's what they said. They said they can make a generator that does not need a power source. That's mind-blowing.
I want to address a couple things real quick. There's a couple questions in the chat, and one thing somebody asked me about, side note on the MH370 stuff, the plasma stuff. Apparently, Vetted looked into that. I have an interview coming out with Professor Simon Howell on plasma physics and some of the MH370 video stuff. So check that out if you guys are interested in that, because I do think there's a connection between these exotic vacuum objects and cold fusion and this free energy. Also, people say, you're going to potentially get killed for this. Like, guys, I know the risks. Like, I've been playing with fire for 9 months regarding the United States military. So I know the risks, and I'm taking those risks. With respect to this video, what I want to say to people is potentially what I've heard about why this configuration is not over unity is if you were to attach a load to this. So you've got this motor, perpetual motor going, but if you attach a load to it and try to start running something off of it, it's going to eventually slow down and it's going to eventually stop. So that's why this type of configuration doesn't work. That's the only thing I'm willing to tell you guys here. Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff out there that does not work. And, when I got into the stuff, back in the early 2000s, I wanted to try some of this stuff. Is it real? And I found out very quickly what was real, what was not real. I blew up many resistors and capacitors and shocked myself several hundred times, because I did not have electrical background. But over the years, I've learned and become very savvy in electrical, that I've been able to kind of push the envelope of, what science saying that cannot be done, right?
Yep.
Like making, my reactive power generator run on a battery for 6 months and it's still working. And it'll
Yep.
work even on a dead battery. So, that my generator is very similar to what Joseph Newman was working with. He was using all dead batteries, and he was able to move a motor that had a 7,000 pound rotor. His last machine he made, 7,000 pounds, and he's using dead batteries, and it's running it for, quite a few hours before they actually would die off. Just the weight alone to churn a 7,000 pound rotor takes a huge amount of horsepower to do it, right? So he was, basically powering the motor with, it was 84 9-volt batteries. They were all dead, less than 50 milliamps of power in each battery. He was able to move a 7,000 pound rotor with those batteries. So he was getting about 460 volts DC at like almost no current. How was this possible? Well, he came up with a theory of kind of changing like the M equals MC squared type theory. And it turned out everybody's saying, well, it's not putting out much power, but they didn't take into account you're moving a 7,000 pound motor. There's your COP right there. Energy to mass ratio, right? 400 volts, you're moving 7,000 pounds. Okay, took a similar setup, hooked it up to a regular DC motor. It lasted less than an hour, and the motor almost caught on fire because it just draw amps from the battery, and the batteries would heat up, and you got problems. His motor ran for several hours with the same kind of battery, and it's moving a massive, rotor. So,
there are configurations that can work, right? And like, I bet if I were now to look at ones that are out there, I can tell much easier which ones are legit and which ones aren't. So like I just gave an example there in the one that kid was showing, which is a cool one to see, because you can tell that magnets definitely seem to be there. Like there's something there when you watch the magnets, because you can create something that's moving.
Was
the
based that that kid used the Bearden patent, the magnetic motor patent that you covered in your stream last night, and then developed it into that. And it's funny, they'll admit and say, oh, it's actually, sure, it's perpetual motion motor, so that's impossible, but it is that. But then if you put a load on, too much of a load on it, then it'll stop.
It's going to slow down.
Actually. But there are
you know what? The only perpetual
one sec. There's a few reports, especially with the SEG, the Searle effect generator, SEG, which is a triple DC magnetic motor, that in fact the more load you put on, the faster it spins and the better it works. And that for those ones that have this inverse reaction, that they're I've seen one video of a working SEG that was doing this, of Searle's original one, and they had the heat gun laser pointed at it, and you literally saw the temperature going down by like 100 degrees around it, just sucking the energy in. But yeah, sorry to interrupt. Continue, please.
Yeah, the only other one that I know of that kind of exhibit the similar effect was the Cromray generator. So the more load you put on it, it drew less current. Well, the regular, electrical science, that's completely the opposite. When you put a load on it, it should drop more amps. Well, with the Cromray generator, when you put more load on it, the amps go down and the motor speeds up. So, what physics is happening in there that, this can happen? And John Bedini actually made a really nice one, a really nice Cromray generator. That's just an example. So there are devices out there, I feel, that are actually legit. And there are a lot of devices out there that they think they're getting the effects, but they really aren't. They're not doing the proper testing or have the proper test equipment, right? So, like the internet's flooded with this stuff. So you have to sift through what you think is real and what's not, The only going back to that magnet motor you were talking about, the only person that I know that actually achieved, I guess you could say, quote unquote, perpetual state was Howard Johnson. And Tom Bearden actually witnessed one of these machines and actually seen it run. And he said he sat at the table for like 2 hours trying to figure out how the hell he did it. He couldn't believe his eyes. And he was a nuclear physicist. He's looking at this and they go, how is this possible? But Howard Johnson cracked it. He was the only guy that really made a true quote unquote magnet motor that could run basically off the magnetic field of a magnet.
Yeah, and what I can say is I know for a fact it's 100% possible. Like I said early on, you weren't quite on yet, Mike, but I have signed an NDA related to it, so I can't reveal how it works. But I can say that it is 100% possible. Absolutely, I'm absolutely certain. And then to me, it's more of a matter of like, how do you prove it to the world without giving away the secret? That's the difficult part.
Yeah.
Because you want, it's your intellectual property. Someone made up a configuration that does able to put a load on it, able to produce energy and move on. And I don't know about the thing related to like that it would take less energy the more stuff you put on. I'm not sure about that, but I do know that it 100% does produce over unity. And yeah, then it just becomes more of a, honestly, economics and business question for how you protect your investment and how you protect your intellectual property. Because look, this is the other thing I want to say to people as well that are skeptical or what have you, or the people that think you should give it away for free, is that imagine you have the golden goose laying golden eggs. What is your incentive to even let the world know? Like, you can charge whatever you want for it because most of the world doesn't know it's real, but in the end, the device works. So you can sell it to people for whatever price you want. So please keep in mind that the person who I signed the NDA with, who is giving this information, like, they are giving, in a sense, giving away the golden goose here by even making that information and telling me that I'm allowed to speak about it publicly. Because they could just hide it for themselves this whole time and just work with people behind the scenes and sell it to people behind the scenes. But they want the information to get out there, right?
Or just put it on the shelf, right?
Yeah. And for people to say, okay, well, where can you get one? More to come on that, guys. I mean, this was the first announcement that I've made related to this. So there will be more announcements. The first one will probably be what the name of the company will be that's going to do this, and then how to solicit serious people who want to purchase it, and what the stipulations will be. There will be stipulations because we do need to protect the intellectual property, especially early on. Maybe those stipulations will loosen over time as it becomes more accepted that it's real. But to begin with, there will be stipulations about what you can say about the device, not tampering with the device, things like that, so that you can't, because otherwise what's going to happen is people are going to give away how it works and what have you to the world. And that's ultimately is what's going to happen anyway. But, the idea is to minimize how long that takes to happen. And for it to reach critical mass where it can no longer be denied that it doesn't work.
Yeah. You know what? I think with the internet and what's happening with all these inventors sharing stuff online, I think more and more people are legitimately actually achieving over unity. Because,
I think so too.
And, the fact that, there's probably 100 million people out there like myself in the basement, coming up with ideas and designing it and then sharing it with everybody on YouTube, and all that. It's like information sharing, right? Everybody's kind of conversing with everybody else and putting their ideas together to make a system that actually works. So it's a good thing in a way, right? It's going to get this stuff out there to say undeniably over unity is possible.
Yeah. And imagine too that if it gets out there, what's going to happen? The first thing that's going to happen is that the same big companies that control the world are going to get access to it, and they're going to start mass producing it, and they're going to start controlling it themselves again. That doesn't solve anything either, right? So this is the part that people need to realize, because people are like, oh, and it will stop all the energy companies. Yeah, until they get access to it and they beat us all out, and then they start monopolizing it. Then it's just going to be the same bullshit we're already been stuck with. So part of the reason too for me wanting to put it out there is that I can get it out there hopefully in a way that will be equitable to people, at least in the long run. Now, I'm not talking about like tomorrow,
Yeah.
But, hopefully years down the line, as we start to get it out there, we can get it out there and not be an evil corporation. Like, I would probably make the motto of my company what Google's motto used to be. Don't be evil. It's a pretty simple one. Don't be evil.
Yeah. So that's why I kind of really embrace this power cell technology, because it's, batteries go way back, right? And it's something that's always going to be in the future as well, is storage of energy.
Big,
you're going to need it for everything. So, if you can perfect the battery to the point where, it's actually going to be almost like an over unity device all on its own, right? You can charge your car and then go to work, right?
Battery, the Hutchinsons.
Well, yeah, like the battery I'm working on kind of regenerates itself. So the second you take the load off, it starts regauging itself naturally, which is really intriguing. If you were to get that, say, in a Tesla, you drive to work, you shut your Tesla off, and then by the time you come back after work, your car's fully charged again because the battery regenerated itself over 8 hours. So you don't have that anxiety of worry about, am I going to have enough power to get home? You know what I mean? And you don't have to have a charge station. The battery will actually do that on its own, regenerate itself. And I think that's where the holy grail is with batteries, self-recharging batteries.
Well, imagine too, like, I can see these devices being paired with stuff that are either like what you just mentioned, or like the Tesla wall battery, or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Where it's like you charge that thing up with the device, and then you use and distribute that energy as you see fit to either charge your car up or whatever. So that, like you said, everything's just constantly recharging all the time.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point where, like, you just don't even really have to plug things anymore. You forgot that you don't have to plug things anymore because they're always charging.
Tesla's original goal was the worldwide wireless free energy grid being powered off of the ionosphere.
Yeah. Well, like these batteries have, I'm working with polymers and reactive type metals and stuff. And if you get the right combination, if I'm getting a quantum tunneling effect or even exhibiting maybe the Casimir effect in the battery, that's amazing. The fact that, a stationary solid state device can actually recharge itself.
Yeah.
That will revolutionize the whole industry for electric cars. You won't need to produce solar panels anymore, which are extremely bad for the environment. Even windmills too. They're not very good for the environment. They kill a lot of birds. There's a lot of problems. They only last 40 years, and then they got to be taken down and rebuilt. There's pros and cons with the air and solar technologies. So if we can make a battery that runs 24/7, 7 days a week, does not need sunlight, and just charges and extracts power from, either from the vacuum or quantum tunneling or the Casimir type effects, that's what I think where we should really head. And it's better for the environment.
So somebody, did you see that comment?
I don't know if your name is I'm a troll, so it's
it's got to be a troll.
Serious or not? It's like, I'm not going to let some guy named I'm a troll randomly join a podcast.
The thing is, like, engineers say, I'm a real engineer. I know how stuff's real work. I'm offering you, anybody that says they're offering you advice when you're the one explaining how it works, like, obviously they're just not up there intellectually to be able to comprehend the information. We're not soliciting advice. Nobody here is asking for your advice on it. When you claim to be a real engineer, there's many real engineers that don't even know how power works. And that's one of the most fundamental aspects out there. I found that out firsthand when I posted how power works, and I had like 50 people claiming to be engineers that don't know how it works at all. People that are literally electricians that don't know how power works. So when you try to claim you know how it works, well, I'm telling you that there's a way. We are telling you there's,
in all caps. I'll put them on the screen and then we can answer them. That's how we can prove it. Otherwise, you're just living up to your name.
There's no need to prove anything, because this is the problem. Is the moment that people say, like, I'm an expert, like, the word expert means nothing. Just because you think you know better than other people doesn't mean a damn thing in this world. If you don't understand that over unity is possible, then you're the one that needs to be educated. because over unity is 100% possible. I've explained how it's possible. I explained the laws of thermodynamics and 1 and 2 in my post. And if you have some kind of dispute with that, then you can just post what your dispute with that is and we can talk about it. But if you're going to try to condescend and talk down from a position of perceived authority, this is what's wrong with the world in general, is the world is not dictated by what the experts believe. Like what Mike just said, he's not even a traditional electrical engineer, not classically trained, and neither am I, but that's not a requirement. I'm going to spoil it for you guys. The people in the black projects don't give a shit about who the people who are experts or classically trained. They want to know the people that really understand the real science that's been suppressed from the world. The people that can figure that out are the ones that have value. The ones that think that what they were taught in the books and what they're taught from their teachers, those people have no value. Those are the people that, okay, you want to go on, you want to learn how to fix a computer, you go ahead and go fix your computers. We're going to let the people that understand that there's more to this world than what we've been taught, we're going to let those people figure out free energy. So not to be rude, but that's just the true situation.
Yeah. Couldn't have said
You
it better
put your
myself.
question in all caps. I put it up and we can read
what's
it.
this one?
I can answer it.
Ask him why he can't reverse the process to make a reactionless generator so it won't drag down the magnet's motor's torque so he can produce far more power. I think we was talking about the kids project that was up there before.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. End of the day, like there are configurations that will allow for free energy. Figuring out exactly what those configurations are, I would say, look at the streams that I've already done related to mostly Thomas Bearden's work to understand the concepts. And again, like I said, I think there are more than one ways to do it.
Yeah, I think personally a real winner with my projects is the current free potential. You can figure out how to do a current free potential system. You'll see the over unity. You might not see it in the power or the reactive power of VR curve, but you'll see it over time. And that's a huge thing. A lot of people overlook time. If I could take a small battery and make it run, for 6 months without actually having to recharge the battery, there's your over unity right there. It might not be an actual how much power you're producing at that second, but over 6 months, you're like, holy cow, this thing put out a lot more power than a regular, motor system, right? So the switching technology is part of it. So I know Jim Murray's been working on it, Paul Babcock. They're all working on reactance power generators.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Nikola Tesla spoke a lot about reactive power. So, reactive, most traditional electrical engineers say, well, reactive power isn't real. It's, it's a spike. Yeah, but if you know how to catch that spike and turn it back into real power by dumping it into a capacitor bank, and then you can do whatever the heck you want with it. And if you're cycling it, at 300-400 times a minute, that starts catching up. You got the time working for you now, right? So there are many configurations that work over Unity. You just got to find out which ones are real and which ones are not real.
Yeah. A couple questions in the chat. I'm trying to address as many as I can that Bernie's bringing up. One says, any books? Now, the book that I would say to read isn't necessarily about, there's not books like here's free energy, but if you look at non-equilibrium thermodynamics by Prigogine, called Modern Thermodynamics, Thomas Bearden pointed out page 459 of that. So Modern Thermodynamics by Eli Prigogine, I believe it is, on non-equilibrium. Oh, you have it right there. Is that it? Oh, no, that's a different one. Okay. But yeah. On non-equilibrium, and non-equilibrium is this idea that you're not having, your system's not a closed system anymore. You're opening this system up, so you're now able to get more energy in. Somebody also asked how to overcome the issue of the patents being suppressed. That's one where I'm struggling with. I truly do not have an answer right at the moment. And when I do have one, that's probably going to be one of my upcoming announcements for what the business rollout strategy is. Because yes, if you can't patent it, that's kind of a big problem. So, yeah, more to come on that. Don't have the answers right now. Are you able to speak about the materials? No, I can't speak about the materials or anything specific about the device. But again, like I can say is that look into the concepts that have already been put out there. The concepts are already all out there. The specific way to configure it and the materials used, I'm not willing to speak on that because of potentially violating the NDA. But yeah, that's the part where I leave it to you guys to figure out. That's the part where you've got to be the inventor who figures out what is the secret sauce that brings it all together. You know, what I can say is watch the video I did last night related to Thomas Bearden talking about the concepts. I'm going to be using those analogies about like wind power and solar power because I think they're great. And also watch the Meg. I did a video a few weeks ago or a week ago about the Meg where Thomas Bearden talks about it for like 30 minutes as well. Those will give you the prerequisites that you need to be able to produce your own. And then what I would say is think a little bit outside the box. There's a secret sauce that's missing somewhere. Think outside the box. That's the best I can do for you guys. I'm sorry I can't give you more. What other questions we got? Let's roll through some questions here. I want to make sure people can answer questions that are out there.
Sorry, I'm just trying to.
Yes.
Let's ignore the troll person as well. The moment somebody's like, I worked at Tesla and SpaceX, whatever, man. Elon Musk probably knows this stuff is real, by the way. Like, I've got it on really good authority that, like, if you're a billionaire out there or the most, richest person in the world, like, you have connections to the people that can produce these things for you. So this is where I'm now, like, very skeptical of Elon Musk, but I'm also appreciative because he hasn't let the government ban me off of Twitter, which is like, that's how you would suppress people traditionally. You just remove their voice. So yeah, it goes both ways.
Yeah, one thing that Thomas Bearden talked about is not killing the dipole. And it took me a long time to figure out what he meant by that. But when you figure it out, it makes total sense because you're not actually extracting, you're not actually having a physical connection with the dipole, right? You're using another force that dipole is creating and extracting it from another, I guess, another closed circuit that's in the proximity of the dipole. So a perfect example would be Tesla's Tesla coil. If you get two coils and they're both in resonant frequency with each other, and if they're within close proximity, you can extract power off of the second tower with not affecting the original tower that's actually transmitting the power. So that's kind of a perfect example of that. You're not killing the dipole.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting when he brought that up. And I think that was on the video yesterday that I reviewed on my stream, if people want to look at that, which was this idea of like, it's going to slow down, but how do you prevent it from slowing down? Well, you add this electric current to it, this minimal electric current, and then that kind of allows it to continue moving forward. I don't know for a fact if that's the answer or not, but it does seem like one potential solution to the problem in general. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, like I've done a lot of Tesla stuff like his one wire setup, and it does work. If you do it exactly to how Tesla wired his system using the one wire system, you could extract off that one wire without actually pulling a load or pulling resistance off the primary circuit. It runs free, and you don't have to add extra power to the system. Everybody doesn't take into account all the energy that's in the space around the machine, because there's just as much activity happening in the machine and around the machine. So that's in free space. Well, we can extract from there. So if you have another antenna or another Tesla coil beside the primary Tesla coil, you can extract all those electrons that are in free space that are now energized, and you can extract off it and create power without pulling a load off the primary. And Don Smith did this many, many times and proved there, without a shadow of a doubt, that this is possible. So,
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I've actually done quite a few experiments from Don Smith, and they do work. So I know his stuff is real.
So a couple of questions. Khalid asked, well, how much, he basically asked how much energy, how much wattage can you get out of a device like this? And the answer is it can be scaled up. So the device can be scaled up to produce as much as you potentially need. Let's just say a shitload potentially, or it can be very small and not produce as much. So it is modular from that perspective, which is one of the reasons why I like the design, is that it's not going to be a one size fits all type situation. And then for anyone who thinks that this is a lie or whatever, I'll just tell you 100% it's not a lie. 100% it is real. You can feel free to try to prove me wrong. Give it your best shot. People have been trying to prove me to be a liar for 9 months straight. And every single person who's tried has been proven wrong and been shot down. It has always backfired. So if you want to give it your best go for it. You got my blessing to try.
Yeah. You know what? It's just a matter of as the technology comes out, day by day, year by year, more and more is going to get released. Barriers are going to be broken. Like I've pretty much defeated lens law completely in my device. And it all has to do with switching. If you get the switching and the timing correct, you can circumvent lens law. So
yeah, part of that
too.
Because I want to add on to what you just said there. Like the problem too is that physicists look at the problems theoretically based on what the equations say, but engineers look at what's actually engineerable, what's observable, and then they work backwards. Right. The physicists are going, well, here's what the equations say, here's what the math says. It says I can't do that. The engineers go, well, here's what I'm seeing. How do we explain it? That's a very big difference. And that's why it's like the answer is somewhere in the middle, right? And this is why I think that if you ignore the engineers and what they're actually seeing, then you're going to be stuck in a box where you're never going to be able to figure out how to get out.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. Like the lens law, a lot of people say, well, you can't get around lens law. Well, that's fine. But if you engineer a system that can go around lens law, it's how it's engineered. Sometimes the engineer can break that law or circumvent it or get around it, right? So, it has to do with the switching technology. And Paul Babcock's done it, Jim Murray's done it, and, they're getting pretty high COPs with their devices. And,
I literally sent the troll an invite, and he's trying to claim that we're stubborn and trolls. Sorry, troll. I sent it to you. You didn't show. You're a troll.
Yeah, I mean, that person was obviously trolling. No big deal, though. So somebody says 4 kilowatts of power to power a home is good. I don't know. That seems like a lot, but sure, maybe. I would actually like to know what the estimate amount of power is to power a home, keeping in mind that like a refrigerator and an air conditioner usually take up like magnitudes more power than like light bulbs do. What do you guys think?
From what I've read, they say
invite on LinkedIn, like you asked. Sorry to interrupt.
From what I've read, they say the average home in North America uses about 25 kilowatt hours per day.
Oh, per day?
Per day, yeah. So, that's based, you're running your refrigerator or your HVAC, your AC or whatever. Those are going to be your largest consumers of power. But, we have the technology right now to make a lot of this stuff extremely efficient. And that's half the battle right there. Like I said, with the street lights, why are they running at 60 hertz? Why not run them at 200 hertz? You're going to save a lot of power, huge amounts of kilowatt hours. So it's, the technology we have is over 120 years old. Now it's time to take the next step and evolve a little bit and start changing certain things that we use on a regular basis, like a street light, and change it from 60 hertz to say 200 hertz. That's going to huge amount of strain off the power grids.
Yeah, improving there's two ways to approach it, right? One is producing essentially unlimited energy, but there's a cost associated to scaling that up that gets more and more expensive. And the other one is making it more efficient and cheaper as well. Exactly. And then it depends on how much air conditioning you're using. Because again, like refrigerator and air conditioner are probably like significant percentage of people's power. And then if you live in an area where you need to use the air conditioner a lot, or if you live in an area where you have to use the heat a lot, then that's going to have a significant impact. But that does help me to understand the problem that just straight up kind of engineering problem is you've got this device. Well, how do you plug everything into it? So you would have to like either build your house, your electricity and your wires around the device, or you need to plug everything into the device with like extension cords as well. So there are some practical engineering problems related to it. It's not just immediately here's this, now everything in my house is powered. It's like, okay, well, where do you power it? That's where I think it makes the most sense for like a backup, or in a situation where you have a guest house, or a situation where you're living off the grid somewhere where you don't have this giant house. Because the bigger your house is physically, the harder it is going to be to wire everything to this device. And then where you put the device as well. Like you want it in your basement or something like that, but you need also plug everything into it. So this is not a situation where it's a perfect solution. It's a product like anything else.
You need to start, right? Exactly. It needs to just be a thing, and in no time it will revolution and evolve like no other. And to the troll, I literally sent it. I don't have a paid LinkedIn, so I had to request you as a whatever the hell they are, follow or anything. It's in the request. Literally, there's a message from BurnEye saying, here's be my friend or something, with the link that you click to join. It's pretty simple.
It's not rocket science. If the person can't figure out how to join a StreamYard invite, then I seriously doubt they're any engineer worth talking to. So, I mean, it's not rocket science. You know, we're talking about little 5-year-olds can figure out how to click a link that says StreamYard invite on it. If you can't figure that out, then you most likely have no idea how electrical engineering works anyway. I also am not really interested in having people come up here and rage out with their CNN brains about how they think stuff works and just adamantly, you know, making assertive arguments of authority, because I get tired of all that bullshit. If that happens, that'll be a short.
If it's like you can ask respectful questions, and if it turns into anything but asking questions and having actual scientific dialogue, you shall be booted. But we're here for science.
No one's afraid of it being challenged here.
Exactly.
Are there any other questions in the chat? Let's see.
Give me 2 minutes, Steve, and I will bring you up.
How much it can be scaled up before it starts hitting the law of diminishing returns? I don't think there really is a law of diminishing returns related to this in general, other than the practical engineering of the devices themselves. So for the most part, I think that you can get it to a pretty serious amounts of power. That, you know, just depends on how big you want the thing to be. And then as time goes on and the engineering improves, presumably the devices get smaller with the output getting higher. Oh, somebody says just have a transfer switch to the breaker. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm not really an electrical engineer, but that seems like a good solution. Just a transfer switch to the breaker box, same as a backup generator.
Yeah, same thing. Yep, you know, it cost about $2,000 to get switched over. Actually, my brother had that done to his house because he has a UPS power system in case, well, he lives more in a rural area. So they tend to get blackouts more often, especially with bad weather. And he just flips a switch and he can turn his UPS system on, and you know, you'll have power to, you know, most of the devices in his house, not everything, but you know, he has that option, right?
Yeah, that'd be sweet if we actually had somebody that literally worked for one of Elon's companies, because I think that I want to get his opinion on this stuff. I mean, it's crazy that he's got a company called Tesla that's making electric cars that doesn't know about over Unity, and he's got a company called SpaceX that's still using conventional rockets to shoot information up into the sky when we have potentially gravity manipulation and space-time manipulation technologies, which render all of that completely obsolete. So I don't know. It's weird too, because I've got to be one of the fastest growing Twitter accounts by volume on Twitter, on X, over the last 9 months. And I've been talking about the craziest shit that's out there, like out of anybody, and had huge engagement. And he just keeps dodging. Like, people have even asked him to weigh in, and he's dodged it. It's really damn bizarre, man. And I think he's the #1 defense contractor as well, or he's up there. So I don't know what Elon's deal is.
Get my coil hooked up to show a live electrolysis making hydrogen from water demo for 2 minutes, and then I will bring Steve up so he can ask some engineering questions to Mike on his work.
JK Philly fan asks, solid state, will it require a certain ambient temperature for performance optimization? I didn't ask that. Go ahead. You go.
This guy that ran the site Quantum Magnetics, unfortunately, he's passed away in 2021. He was working on the cell technology that I'm working on. And his system, he noticed if you put it in the sunlight, there was an increase of potential with thermal heat. So that's pretty interesting all on its own. So yeah, it all depends on the elements used in the power cell. Uh, you know, the increase of voltage can happen due to thermal increase, being exposed to sunlight or hot temperatures. And also in cool temperatures, a lot of batteries, they go into a sleep state. They start losing power. And that's where kind of the Tesla cars have kind of really hurt as far as, driving in sub-zero temperatures. They start losing a lot of their energy output and capacitance. So that's always been an issue with the Tesla cars. There are systems out there that have battery warmers to keep the batteries at a certain temperature, so they can maintain that capacitance. But what the question is now, you're still feeding off the battery because you have to power the battery warmer. So it's kind of defeating itself right there. How much power does it take to keep the battery warmer warm? Meanwhile, it's feeding that power off the battery, right? You kind of get nowhere fast with that one. So it's the technology is not there yet. Like I'm all for electric cars, but my problem is when they have to charge up, they're still hooking up to the grid. Well, what's powering the grid? Fossil fuels. So you might not be going to the gas station, but you're still pulling it off the grid. The regular grid that's using fossil fuels to generate that power. So until you can have a Tesla car work on the technology that I'm doing, where when the car's at rest and the load is off the battery can recharge itself. So there's many advantages with that. Now you could go on long trips. All you have to do is make a stop, have a 1 hour lunch, and you might gain back 25% of your battery in that 1 hour time. So you can carry on you don't have to worry about plugging in, where the battery can actually do it itself. And I
Yeah.
think that
So,
would
do you need a battery question? People asked. The temperature could be a factor. I don't know on the device that I looked at. Maybe something to ask about. Technically, I'm not sure if you have to have a battery, but the idea of the battery would be that there's something you're charging actively. So same idea as like the Tesla wall thing. So
right.
generally, you shouldn't need a battery for these over unity devices because, like I said, they're just producing charge constantly. But what do you do with the extra energy that's not being used? Of course, you don't want it to go to waste. So you would potentially use, and you need to be able to control how much energy it's outputting as well. So these are engineering questions and complications. So I guess the answer to, do you need a battery? No, but do you want to have a battery? Probably yes, because you want to be able to charge that up and then use and distribute that energy as possible. How small can you make the device? The devices can be made pretty small, but not nanoscale small. I mean, maybe they can. I don't know. But that's not what I'm planning at all. And at this time. And I think that the size of the device is proportionate to the amount of energy output. So the smaller it is, the less energy it's going to output.
Right. Exactly.
Somebody also asked what the timeline of the rollout is, and I don't have a timeline of rollout or anything like that at the moment, but those would be some things that I'm, working on behind the scenes in terms of what the rollout would look like and how long it would be in general. So, yeah. Good questions from the chat out there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a slow trickle, in the next 50 years of, these technologies eventually are going to get rolled out slowly because, you just can't throw everything out all out at once. Society's got to re-gauge itself to the change, right? The infrastructure has to go in place. New devices have to be built for modifying your house power systems. There's a lot of engineering that has to be rolled out over a series of, several decades. It's not going to happen overnight. So, as long as we have a steady trickle of technology that is definitely going to benefit us all in the long run. Maybe not for myself and you, but like my daughter, you know, she's only 12 years old. You know, hopefully she'll see some of the stuff that Daddy's been working on for years and years, and some of Daddy's ideas might actually become a reality in regular mainstream industry. You know, like the power cell technology, stuff like that. She might see that down the road.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason why the information is even allowed to be out. A lot of the people that say you're going to get silenced or whatever will realize there is a faction of people within the government that want this information to be out there because of what Mike just said. They want their children and grandchildren to grow up in a better world. The suppression has gotten completely out of control. We're talking about suppression now where people don't even realize what we're capable of anymore. To just literally explain what we see in multiple military videos, people just think it has to be fake because mainstream public has no idea of what we're capable of, because we've gotten into this loop of going back and forth where only things that can be possible are what people are told on TV and what they read in scientific papers that are publicly available. But that's not how the real world works. That's just what people have been. That's how the knowledge of the suppression of knowledge works. So that's why I think there are people that want it out. That's why there are people not stopping me. And that's just my opinion of why, you know, this stuff hasn't been silenced in general.
Yeah, like I said, you know, you can only keep a secret so long, right?
Yeah, agreed.
Sorry, Steve, I have to mute you because you have yet to turn off what you were watching, it on, whether it was X or YouTube in the background. That's what's giving the background noise there. And my light is too messed up. I'm gonna have to change the camera angle to show the actual hydrogen here. So I will remove that for a sec. And
I don't. Sorry to jump in here. There has been a really cool invention that's just coming out of, I believe, Germany. They came up with this new material that absorbs hydrogen. It's called hydrogen paste. So you could actually infuse hydrogen gas into this paste, and now it's in a stable state that it will not explode. It could get hit, whatever. It's very stable storage device. So now you can actually store hydrogen in these tubes of paste, and it can be released, you know, in a controlled manner and actually run an engine. So it's called hydrogen paste. You might want to look that up online. So new technologies coming out. I still think there's a lot of room for hydrogen stuff. And fuel
Awesome.
cells.
Well, let's get to our new guest that we've got here. Steve Krug, welcome to the chat, my man. So why don't you give us a background of who you are and what you want to weigh in on?
Hey, how's my audio? Can you hear me?
It's really horrible. Do you mind going into the settings, the audio option? There should be, you can click on activate background noise cancellation as well as the equalizer. And then also, if you have a different microphone, please try switching it to it, because the one you're currently on is causing a lot of distortion.
Yeah, we're hearing your keyboard typing. So I'm guessing your mic is in your keyboard or something. You're on a laptop, maybe.
Right. Yeah, right close. And it sounds like it's right next to a fan too, potentially. Okay, yes. The hydrogen literally is the future. They've been saying that forever, just like they've been saying fusion energy is the future too, which they both are. But it's that they're connected, and it's all to do with water and a small amount of electricity, and so simple, and they can't let that aspect out of the bag. They have to instead build all of these different facilities to mine the literally mine the hydrogen out of the ground from hydrogen pockets, as well as create different giant plants to do the electrolysis to get the hydrogen out of the water for a company. And then they have to then do some other process to turn it into a chemical, into a solid state, just to make it safe, to then, up the costs by a 10,000-fold to a million-fold and sell it back to us, just like they do with petroleum gasoline, instead of the Stanley Myers or there's literally hundreds, if not thousands, of videos on YouTube of do-it-yourself engineers and mechanics that do a jar of either salt, electrolyte, so water plus either a salt or a potassium or something to conduct the electricity. You have that with your 2 electrodes, and then you have another pipe going into a second jar that is the spitter jar that collects all of your hydrogen from the reaction, as well as collects all the water at the bottom, and from that jar then pushes and pumps the just hydrogen remaining into your fuel intake, into the engine, and boom, you've got a hydrogen powered water car.
Yeah.
And
I think you know what, as far as making hydrogen, it's not hard to do. I think the real barrier has been the storage medium, and now the technology.
That's what they
guys,
sell
I
it
know,
to you.
I know it's exciting, but let's get to our guests since we have a guest here with us. I know you guys want to talk hydrogen, but we've got the guest here. I looked up Steve Krug. Krug took me about 5 seconds. He's the founder at Axial. Attended University of Wisconsin-Madison. Worked at aerospace development engineer at SpaceX, Tesla, Virgin Orbit, and Spin Launch. Is that accurate, Steve? Do you want to give us your background?
Is that just a troll message, or is this your actual thing? And we that's why.
Oh, I just Googled him, so let's just let him speak for himself, though.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I am that commenter. I want to apologize in advance. I need to say some crazy things in order to get your attention. Otherwise, I didn't think that.
You're kind of hard to hear. Can you put the mic closer to your mouth or something?
Microphone, but
does that make a difference?
No, I don't think it's picking that microphone up.
I think it's being picked up from either my laptop or this camera. Did this make a difference?
Yeah, that sounded better. Can you keep talking?
Yep. How about now?
Yeah, much better.
Sure.
All right. Yeah, so my cords are getting all screwed up, so this
we can hear you a lot better now, though.
In and out. All right. So yeah, I haven't looked into this phenomena, I should say, which I don't even agree with that term, because I think there's just a lot of open questions that we don't understand. But I haven't looked into any of this until like the last year. Before that, I had no clue about any of it. I had no interest in these things that people are apparently seeing. I only just started doing research once, like Obama said on a couple of interviews that, there's things in the sky that people don't. People are interested in figuring out what that is, and we don't know what they are. And having researched this quite a bit, I still haven't found any concrete evidence that the layman behind their computer can say with 100% certainty that any of it is real. I think that there's a lot of preponderance of evidence.
So what are you talking about specifically, though? You're being very, very general and vague.
I'm all of it. I'm literally talking about
all of what?
All of what? Reality? Are you saying that there's
no? You're talking about the UFO phenomenon.
I'm talking about the UFO phenomenon. I'm talking about MH370 video. I'm talking about this energy stuff you're talking about right here.
So basically, anything and everything in conspiracy world, you're saying there's no evidence as real. So you're not actually an engineer, because you said you were coming on to ask some electrical engineering questions.
Yeah. So all right, let me.
Yeah, when you preface like that, I just want to be honest with you. When you preface and make statements like that, it kind of damages your credibility because it comes across like you're coming across as somebody who's setting up, kind of poisoning the well, and you're setting it up saying, well, I haven't seen it, and I've done some research, so therefore whatever you're saying can't be true, as opposed to just answering, asking basic questions, right?
I don't care. You can have that.
Anyway, please continue. We'll
I think that's a
totally
valid opinion that you can have. So let's do.
I mean, you're a former SpaceX engineer, right? And you worked with Tesla. Is that true, or what's your background? Let's just start with that.
Yep. So, I've worked at those companies for a couple years each, since 2015, and since then I've been doing my own thing. for like the past 3 years at a startup.
Awesome.
And yeah, I have looked into, I think, some of the things that you guys have claimed to also look into, like this power from water or hydrogen or whatever. I've looked into that. I couldn't find anything credible that supports that, you know, you can have a perpetual motion device. I've looked into it, and there's a reason why, like, just ask yourself this: why hasn't anyone who works in an industry go on these podcasts with you and support everything you're saying? Just ask yourself that.
Yeah, have you watched any of my content or anything? Did you watch my Tim Pool appearance?
Or mine?
No,
Like, are you
I don't know what
actually
that is.
asking these questions? Like,
So
Salvatore
yeah, like
Pius, the guy that works for Space Force and has the Navy patents for the Tic Tacs, has come on both Ashton shows, my own show.
There's a
our
bigger
Apex,
picture with
we've
all of
got-
that. There's a hey. So let me stop you there again first. So with the Navy patents, bring up all of these. We'll go through these one by one. Let's start with the Navy.
no, it is no need.
Let's go back to you saying you haven't seen a single person, blah blah. I just gave you an example of one, and now you're just like acting like there was nothing.
Let me address that point. We'll go point by point here.
That?
So let me go point by point. So you said you haven't seen any credible evidence, but then we said, well, we've got Navy engineer Salvatore Pius, who's active Navy engineer, who works on potentially black projects, who's got 3 patents that are out there: high temperature, piezoelectric induced superconductivity, high frequency gravitational wave generator, and inertial mass reduction for a transmedium craft. And the patents are out there. They're approved patents. Those patents are approved. They're not in question.
Yeah,
and he has spoken about electrical engineering in depth with me twice. And then also I went on Tim Pool with DoD contractor engineer Dave Rossi, where he actually spoke about the MH370 videos, which I heard you bring up, saying that he's seen those effects in private labs. And we also have Thomas Bearden in 1985 talking about how he's done measurements in private labs, seeing the speed of light move at 8 times what we would believe to be the speed limit of light in general. So when you say stuff like you haven't seen these people, well, they're there. It just seems like you're just discrediting them. Okay. Am I wrong?
Let me answer what you just said there with all those examples. I think all of those things do have credibility to them. Actually, you're going to learn about, you know, my background with all the research I've done so far. So like Salvatore Pius, I think there's some. I think it's very possible that there are like super high velocity vehicles that are unmanned that the U.S. some of the U.S. military contractors have. I think that it could also be partially a PSYOP. There's probably some proportion of it that is, and also there could be part of it that is that the U.S. government is, now that there is potential for a global conflict, that they're using some of this PSYOP to confuse the adversaries.
What's the goal of the PSYOP in your question? Because it's funny, because you just came out of saying, well, you haven't seen evidence that any of this stuff is real, but then you just imagine this conspiracy theory where real science that has approved patents is being used as a PSYOP. So now you're the conspiracy theorist. So tell us, what is this PSYOP that you're inventing? What is the goal of that PSYOP? What's the purpose of it?
So all I'm saying, I'm just giving you a hypothesis. I don't know if any of this is true.
Okay, so
you're just asking questions. We got
questions.
Yeah,
let's get back to questions. So let's get back to you've seen no evidence of being able to take hydrogen out of electricity. Was that one of what you said?
Hydrogen out of electricity.
Out of water with electricity. That's what you were saying. That.
Are you talking about like
the water-powered car from hydrogen that we're talking
like a Toyota
about,
Mirai,
like Stanley Meyer's vehicle, right? It's like,
I don't know what that is.
Okay, so it is a car that instead of gasoline, you have water, and that with a very small amount of electricity you put in, it, boom, electrolysis happens. It converts that water into hydrogen and oxygen, which then is fed directly into the combustion engine and is used as your fuel. So you have a water-fueled car that is a hydrogen car. So you're saying that is a psyop?
No, I'm not saying that. I never said that specifically. So I think that you can take hydrogen, and with the correct stoichiometric ratios for combustion, you can use hydrogen, whether it's a compressed gas or liquid hydrogen, if you have that with the appropriate catalyst.
Yeah, of course. There's plenty of hydrogen-powered cars.
Did he die off? Oh, there he is. He's back.
But there's no evidence that supports you can create energy out of anywhere in this process, which I think is what you guys were proposing.
You can't create energy out of anything. Energy cannot be created or destroyed.
Yes.
So exactly. Obviously, we're converting energy, is what it is.
Like fusion or fission, potentially. But I guess the bigger question is, let's just get to the big questions, right? So the idea of the ether. What do you think about the idea of the ether? Steve, right? Yeah, Steve. What do you think about the idea of the ether? You think that's silly?
I don't know what that is.
So what do you think about quantum fluctuations in the vacuum? Any thoughts on that?
I think that we don't understand it yet.
We don't understand it. So do you agree there's stuff that we don't understand, right? Do you agree there's stuff we don't understand that's out there? Like, we're not at the pinnacle of all science right now. I mean, you agree with that, right?
100%.
Yeah. And so I think that's what us up here, what we've been talking about, is what we're pushing, is this idea that we are not at the pinnacle of science. There's still stuff we don't understand. We're not, 2024 is not the end of human understanding. We know that we don't understand dark matter. We don't understand dark energy. We don't understand where quantum fluctuations in the vacuum come from. We don't understand why the Casimir force exists. And we're just trying to look for those answers. And one possible answer to those is the idea of an ether, that the space is not empty. So you could call it the space-time ether. You could also just call it the quantum fluctuations in the vacuum. But then the question is, if there are such a thing as virtual particles that are popping into existence, where are they coming from? Where does that come from? Where does energy come from in general?
Yep. All right. So I actually agree with pretty much everything you're saying there. But I do have one big problem with all this. The problem that I have is when one or either of you make a statement saying, I know information X and I can't tell you about it. Okay. Do not do that.
Why?
That kills your credibility completely.
Dude, I'm not trying to... Okay, please keep going, I guess, if you're not done.
Put up or shut up. Build something to prove it, or don't say anything.
Okay, so I literally...
Otherwise...
That's the plan? That's the plan?
Okay,
so I'm just going to be honest. I said that.
Don't make more posts about it. Go build something.
Let's
that
just
works.
drop this guy. I think I've heard enough. But it was good. It was great. Honestly,
I've got one last. I've got two questions before.
Okay, hit him with some questions.
One, what was your? This is an opportunity of a lifetime. I'm an actual engineer. What were your actual engineering questions for Mike, because he's actually building this stuff and we were actually talking real science and electrical engineering?
Yeah, so
clearly you didn't understand.
So I can only ask specific questions if I first understand what you've been trying to do. It is not even clear to me what you're trying to do first. So first, you need to present something.
All right. I have a quick. Can I ask a question? I have a question. BurnEye, let me ask you a question first. How many subreddits do you moderate?
Me? No.
And was that your job for Tesla and for
SpaceX? What was exactly your job at Tesla and SpaceX?
That was my.
What was your specific role? What was your specific role?
What were your specific jobs?
I mean, you can just go to my LinkedIn.
Well, why don't you just tell us? If somebody asked me, I would say my exact role is I'm a database architect. What was your role at Tesla and SpaceX?
Structures and vehicle dynamics.
Awesome. Great. So I appreciate the conversation. I think that when I say that I've got information that I can't say because I've got an NDA, it's because I've got a literal NDA. Look, man, you're not.
Don't even tell people you have an NDA.
I don't know why. Yeah, there we go. Thank God. Let's get rid of this idiot. Jesus Christ. This is what's wrong with science in general. Like, we've got morons that speak down from positions of authority,
I'm
right?
sorry for letting it go on for that long. I was just kind of letting embarrass himself and discredit himself more and more, but it was like
it's embarrassing that like this is the people,
but he was just so
yeah. I mean, he's not even asking basic questions, but like this is the problem. Like this is why SpaceX. Now we understand why SpaceX is still shooting conventional rockets into the sky, right?
There's no actual way that guy actually worked for either SpaceX or freaking Tesla. There is, I guarantee, like that has to be made up fake fucking LinkedIn stuff.
I mean, honestly, it's embarrassing for Elon Musk that he hired somebody like that. Like, wow. Because honestly, if that's the best and the brightest out there, we are fucking doomed, honestly.
Yeah.
Like,
unless he's like Elon's like baby's mama's inbred brother or cousin or something. So that's why he was like a former employee at both. They're like, we got to give him something. And then it's like, oh God.
I mean, I love the false sense of confidence and like moral superiority that these people have, where it's like, I looked into the stuff you're talking about for like a year and I didn't find any credible evidence. It's like, Jesus, man. So like basically you have no fucking clue what you're talking about, and you want to talk down and condescend to other people that are smarter than you to try to feel superior to them. Where it's just like, what's the point of your life, man? Go move on with your failed company or whatever shit you're trying to work on. Like, I guarantee you're never going to be successful.
Well, no, he is successful. That right there, I can guarantee you, is an actual example of a human paid bot troll. Like, I guarantee you, he is a paid disruptor by some organization, whether government or something.
No, but here's the thing. I want to let me correct that because
he is too fucking stupid and was just on this playbook of what to do to interrupt. Like he was on an interrupt playbook.
No, this is the thing. Like you call these, this is what an NPC is, Bernie. So this is the thing. A lot of people out there think these people are paid agitators.
Yeah, I know. Like, that's what I'm saying. Literally, this guy has been replaced in the real world first in the government. Like when they're replacing jobs, like his job was slashed first and replaced with 20 million Twitter bots like 10 years ago. That's why I'm saying, like, for him to still be around. Like,
so this is the problem. The NPCs, though, they don't have the ability to critical think. Like for someone like Steve, who just came on, like I literally don't think this person is conscious. Like I consider them to have the same intellectual value of like an animal that's just walking around. They're just going through the motions in life, you know? And like they say stuff like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. But then they go, well, I think that these patents that exist from a real Navy engineer are a psyop. Like, dude, you're the conspiracy theorist.
You have to let me on. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity to have an actual electrical engineer that's actually available on a Friday right now. Is his begging question.
Yeah, so I guarantee he's available every single Friday, by the way. But the part two is like,
but here's the thing. He started out by saying, absolutely everything, like, so everything, like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, that's the literal exact opposite of a specific electrical engineering question, you fucking fat troll.
So hold on, let's chill a little bit, because
I don't get it.
I want to address the arguments, not the person. And one of the things is like, okay, you make up this claim that, oh, this is a psyop, and then you get questioned on your belief, and you just go, well, I don't know, I'm just making stuff up. And you're like, well, that's the thing that you're trying to claim that we're doing, right? You're projecting your own insecurities onto other people. And I think a lot of this comes from a position where people are scared, where like they were to realize that they've been lied to and that the world isn't like the way that they think and what they've been taught was false, that it personally attacks their worldview. It threatens their worldview. And this is where the cognitive dissonance comes into play, where they must think that, oh, no, I couldn't have been lied to. This person must be full of crap, you know? And this is why you see that behavior. It doesn't require them being paid agitators.
He's still winning because it was the action of a disruptor. And so let's do in the chat, in all of the chat, put a 1 if you think he was a paid troll, or put a 2 if you think he was just the world's ultimate loser. But let's move back to real science and real free energy and show what the actual hydrogen is, what these battery cells are, the crystal battery stuff, and actually get back to maybe Mike, if you can, while we still have you with us, because it's getting late there. If you don't mind, can you turn on
I'm gonna have to drop pretty
again,
soon as
show
well.
yourself?
I'm exhausted, and it's been a long day. So I'm probably only gonna go for
give-
another 10 minutes or so, and then
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you guys can keep going, but I'll probably
same
drop
here.
after that.
Yeah,
it's
same here.
Oh, wow, we're already over 2 hours. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I was just going to say, Mike, if you don't mind giving us a little live demo showing us your actual engineering work that you've built and the aspects of where you're getting these over efficiencies from and what you've been testing. Because for those that are seeing or learning of Mike and his work for the first time right now, he has built the Bendini motors. He has built the N machine. He has also built the Don Smith generator, and the Don Smith generators where you have a plasma arc, electrical arc, and that I'll let you talk.
The best thing, you know what? I don't have anything set up right now because it's like almost 1 a.m. here.
Fair enough. So just give us a description.
But you can actually show on my YouTube channel the Don Smith generator by extracting ambient energy from a Tesla plasma tube into a very simple inductor, and you can extract that power and rectify it into DC, dump it into a capacitor, and then run a light with it. So it's very simple technology. Like, it's not hard to make. Like, just get your plasma tube and make an inductor that sits right beside the tube or surround the tube. Take one wire, put it through a full wave bridge rectifier. It has to be a high voltage one because the Tesla plasma tube, the one I have, puts about 2.5 kilovolts. So you have to use a high voltage high bridge rectifier. Dump that right into a capacitor, and then from there you can run a load with it, run a light. It's high frequency, but it works. It works very well. That's just one example. Like, I've built many devices. Like the N machine creates a lot of current, but very little voltage. And the only problem is you have to scale that machine up huge in order to get it over unity effect. The one Bruce De Palma was working on, his first machine was over 900 pounds. So that's a huge amount of magnets. So, some stuff is practical and some stuff is not really practical because of the scale, right? It becomes more expensive than what it's actually worth.
The video is the setup of the Don Smith generator, and you're pulling the radiant energy out of the plasma arc of the Tesla coil, correct?
Right, exactly.
And then it's powering the light bulb.
So you'll see how fast it actually turns on and how bright it goes. So I was able to sustain 130 volts, and it was running a 60-watt LED bulb, which in actual wattage, if you hook it up directly to a watt-hour meter, it's about 9 watts, and the plasma tube only takes 7.5 watts to run. So right there you have over unity. So 7.5 watts, and I'm running a load that's 9 watts. So right there, that's over unity. Just a simple little device like that.
Does the video look inside of it there? That's pretty cool looking.
Yeah. So
this reminds me of, have you seen Red Collie on Twitter by any chance with his like compaction fusion device that he's working on? It looks really cool.
No, I haven't seen it.
I posted it once, got like 2.5 million views, and then I got community noted people saying that you can't make cold fusion, or that there's no, like that other guy's like, I haven't seen any evidence. It's like, okay, well, Well, sure, man.
Right? Exactly. That's why I'm bringing this up and we're closing and showing this, because it's like we were literally talking real scientific knowledge and education, actual electrical engineering, this entire stream of all of what Mike's been describing. Now we're actually showing just one of his hundreds of experiments and live builds and demos, and that just as what a average troll that has clearly not watched anything at all, that just comes to attack, like it's just they're the epic, like it's just
well, that's what we face, though. It's important because a lot of people argue from a position of ignorance. They argue, well, I haven't been told that. I haven't seen that. Therefore, it can't be real. And this is why we get stuck in this era of depression.
Looked, we're literally giving you examples. Right?
Yeah. And then also, when you want to argue from a theoretical perspective, then you need to be able to argue why it's not possible as well, which is that's why I'm confident in challenging people with the ideas that I've thrown out there about the first and second laws of thermodynamics, because what I expect people to say is, well, I haven't seen that. Well, I haven't seen the scientific papers that show that. Well, that doesn't mean it's not true. There's a pretty big difference. And like I said, like I do plan to produce a device to show people. And hopefully that will come with more announcements. It's really just a question of, even if you were to show someone like that the device, then their next things are going to say, well, there's no scientific paper supporting it. Well, there must be wires hidden somewhere in the background. And this is what makes it so difficult, is that for people like that, and I don't want to put him on the spot, it's just he's a good example of a lot of people in the world.
He needs to be put on the spot. He is a troll. There's no real science. There's no anything with that.
He didn't say a single scientific thing at all, to be honest with you.
Yeah, exactly. And that real science takes scrutiny. That's why I was like, I brought him on specifically because I actually was like, we have a real electrical engineer, because we are doing real electrical engineering. That's all we do in this. That's what this actually is. And to demonstrate that the ignorance are all that can argue against this, because anyone who actually understands what they're talking about and understands this stuff is working on it. And there's lots of us doing it. And Ashton, we should make this a more regular thing, because Mike here, myself, we've been doing these, Gerald, many more, Jeremiah, the whole APEC as well. And there's just too many to name at this moment as we end this, but that it's real stuff happening. Everybody can do it. Mike has rebuilt like 10 other famous over Unity devices that are on YouTube, that are out there, like the Bendini, like the End Machine, like the Don Smith generator, and then from all of those applied them into a more advanced model that he's built of his own device that combines all of those principles, thus taking the level of over efficiency and over Unity and application to the next exponential up. And it's what we all need to be doing. And
so let me jump in too, because I want to first appreciate you guys who are, like, I'm not traditionally an engineer, electrical engineer, but I appreciate that you guys are out there doing the engineering, because a lot of these so-called scientists don't ever do anything experimental or engineering related. And the science is the study of observable reality. People forget that. A lot of people think that science is a scientific paper that somebody wrote. Science is literally studying observable reality and using the scientific method, coming up with a hypothesis, doing your experiments, getting a result, evaluating the hypothesis, and if necessary, going back and creating a new hypothesis. It's actually not that complicated, but yet, and this is where people who are not, who don't do science, they think that, it's what I've been told, it's what I've read. That's not science. That's not what science is, guys. Yeah. So thank you guys for being those people.
Yeah, and that's why I thank Michael Faraday and Tesla for being the type of inventor they were, because they had a theory, but they actually built what they envisioned and actually got results. So those guys I look up to as mentors, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to drop, guys. It's really late for me. I'm tired. But I want to thank you guys for having me on.
Thank you, Ashton, for doing this. Sorry, I was literally just trying to get a focus to end that off. I don't know if it's showing bubbles going up or not. If videos.
I can see some bubble
Fair enough.
things, but
Yeah,
hey, if we could set up another one with
but-
Jeremiah too, I've been wanting to talk to Jeremiah for a while because I think he's really
100%,
smart and
my friend.
knowledgeable. And it's funny because I feel like I have a good intuition for the people that are the real scientists that kind of think outside the box. They take that new approach on old physics. So would love to do that with you guys in the future. And if and when I have something to physically show people as well, I think that would be awesome to show on a live stream. That might be a good way to convince a large number of people. So I'll be thinking about those types of ideas, but thanks for having me on to talk about it. And I want to say thank you to the 4 Orbs fam right now as well. Appreciate you. And thanks for being in my live streams as well a lot, Bernie. So everybody should be following Bernie, follow Mike as well, guys. We should be following the people that are doing the real science. So thanks everybody and have a good night. Peace, MH370.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Love. Thank you, Ashton, for joining. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everybody. Yeah. And like Ashton said, it's all about real science, and real science is doing live science where you are not afraid of scrutiny. Anyone that tries to ban, block, not listen, or debate, or just can't take a question clearly is not on a solid form. And it's this, what is reality, right? Real is you can take it, an argument, and you can show and defend it and show the solid reality of what it is. That is science. You test it, and right now we're testing my camera and the electrolysis, and it's not really showing too much active bubbles, but it is showing some, and that is a live demonstration of electricity creating hydrogen gas out of water. I literally have over 500 videos on my channel of this reaction working much, much better than this, and teach how everybody can. This is actually possible. Anybody can do it. So can you. That's what we're all doing. Mike Faraday Research. Make sure you subscribe to Mike as well and all of his work, and that Mike has been for years publishing on YouTube his builds, testing all of these other people's free energy devices, verifying it, and then applying that science to taking it to the next level. And he does League of Extraordinary Inventors every Friday with Free Energy Friday. Any last words, Mr. Mike?
I'd like to talk to Ashton again soon. Seems to know his stuff.
Yeah,
I'm gonna head to bed here. Yeah, I'm gonna head to bed here.
And we'll see you later. Thanks for watching.
All right.
You crazy mother. Yeah.
It's just Bernie.
Hey, Bernie, just like last week, huh?